We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
And it's me, Meg. Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes. This season, we're covering Nadiya Bakes, where Nadiya Hussein returns to baking, her happy place, and spotlights creative kindred spirits. On the menu for today, we're going to digest all 8 episodes of Season 1 of Nadiya Bakes, what we liked, what we didn't like as much, which baked goods we'd most want to shove in our faces, and more. But before we get into Nadiya Bakes, let's find out what we've been cooking, eating, and generally getting up to in the kitchen. So, Justine, what has been going on with you?
Okay, so I made something weird last night. Weird. I'm already like...
Was it a croissant lime bread pudding?
No. Oh my God, stop. Okay, I found this recipe for a, just like a 30-minute, it's called chickpea and tomato curry soup. It's like a basic chana plus veggie broth situation, but... it was fine. It was good. I want to preface it. I was like, it's good. It's fine. Bit simple because, been used to making dals and chanas that actually have more spices in them. Mm-hmm. And I did check. And I don't want to, be like, it was a white lady, but it was a white lady. And the only spice in there was curry powder. And so, I don't know, man. I definitely was expecting more things. I definitely feel like since I've been eating stuff with more spices in, to go back the simplistic route just tastes kind of boring, which I think for me, it's a bit of an improvement in my cooking, tasting life. So it's like, no mustard seeds, no garam masala. Like, these are things that I'm like, yes, those are the flavors I want. But it was simple to make. I had everything. And then after I made the basic soup portion, then it turned weird because the menu suggested like having it over rice or rice noodles to make it hearty. And I was like, rice noodles, that's a great idea because I have a box and I've had it for a while and I've been needing to eat it. And since this is already a soup, why the heck not? So I made the rice noodles separately. And then when I put them in, it just kind of went from soup to just like a noodle dish. Mm. It got all like sucked up, but still good, simple, in that the flavors were basically just like the hint of curry, veggie broth flavor, the salt, and then like lime juice. And I loaded up with lime juice because yum, yum, yum. And then throw on some cashews on top for some crunch. So I'm like, is this now this Indian Thai fusion thing? Have I created that?
Well, did you zhuzh it up with some of your spices you had on hand once you realized it was kind of bland?
I think it was too late at that point because
it had just been sucked up by the noodles?
Yeah, well, by the veggie. I didn't know like how it would all taste with the veggie broth too. And prior to that, you'd want to like toast those spices, But I think if I wanted to like change it up, it could definitely work. Like, especially I think the mustard seeds in there would have been like, ah.
Sounds like you would like BB's kitchen cookbook.
Is it something you would make again if you like change some things?
Yeah, maybe. Definitely. It's a good way to sort of change up from just having, basic dals or basic chanas. Also, I only had 1 can of chickpeas instead of 2, so I just used a can of chickpeas and a can of black beans because comparatively they are kind of the same. I couldn't really taste a difference in that. But yeah, in the end, if you're just throwing everything that you have in your pantry into a pot and then making it soup, I'd say yes. But also, like I said, in the end, it wasn't a soup because it was just noodles and beans. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I just have a lot of it now because the noodles, yeah. That's my thoughts.
A cooking adventure indeed.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Amanda, how about you?
We still don't have a stove, so not a lot, but we are getting one in September. That's news. So, yes.
September is just around the corner.
We're getting a free hand-me-down gas stove in September.
Oh, boy.
Which makes it even cooler. Yeah, that's all I know about it so far. That it's free and it's a gas stove. So Jeremy we have this little, like, plug-in skillet thing that's, I don't know, it's more shaped rectangular, but, like...
Hot plate.
We made a frozen, like, skillet meal thing not too long ago to have for dinner. And I've been really into yogurt recently. That's been... Noosa yogurt has been, like, my favorite thing that Jeremy can never pronounce correctly. He's like, that Noom? And I was like, no, that's a different thing.
Did I ever tell you guys, one of the apartments I lived at in Chicago, I never had the gas turned on? Did I tell you that story?
No.
So you froze to death and you're a ghost now, is how the story ends.
No, the heat was electric. I only wanted to pay for one thing because I was poor, okay? And it was already like $600 a month to, like, heat up that place to just above freezing because it's Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have a working oven, so I just had a hot plate like that on the counter to just make anything instead of having an actual stovetop because I didn't want to pay for gas. End of story. I was poor.
I mean, we've been getting by with that. And have I talked about how I think the toaster oven is a magical box?
Toaster ovens are great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, I had brought home leftovers from a thing at work, Olive Garden, and the breadsticks we put in the toaster oven, and they were, like, even crispier and better than they are when you get them at the table. The toaster oven has been great. We did that with our little, like, skillet meal. Jeremy made some, like, Texas toast, garlic bread and stuff. So, yeah, not a lot of cooking, but, you know, we're able to actually, like, eat some stuff at home and utilize some tools. And he brought home our toaster, our regular toaster this week. So
Pop-Tarts for everyone.
Yeah, when I lived in Japan, all I had was a stovetop, no oven. It was pretty unusual to have an oven in the area where I lived. I don't think a lot of Japanese homes have ovens. And I also had a toaster oven. So yeah, I love toaster ovens. I learned how to cook a little bit with just a stovetop, although at that time I wasn't really cooking much at all. That's sort of been a new development in my life. But yeah, I feel for you.
Yeah, I used to eat just strictly out of the toaster oven.
Now I need a toaster oven, I think, maybe.
I think toaster ovens should sponsor us.
I think they should. Like, you put it in and it's like, oh my God, it just is so magical what it does.
That Dash electric egg cooker that I love so much, they also have a little teeny tiny toaster oven that looks really cute. So Dash, hit us up.
What about you, Meg? What have you been up to?
So it was recently my husband's birthday, and usually he requests a special meal, and he asked for a family recipe, which was my grandmother's recipe, and she called it hot hamburger sandwiches, so I guess that's what I'm going to call it. But the usual recipe is ground beef with hard-boiled eggs, cubed cheddar cheese, red and green bell peppers, purple onions, pimento, olives, and mayonnaise, if I hadn't said that already, and some pickle relish. And you mix it all up together, you put it in a hamburger bun, and then you bake those in the oven wrapped up in foil. And I know it sounds like a lot. I know it sounds crazy, but it's really, really good. I love it. My husband loves it. But the challenge for me this time was making it vegetarian because I'd never made it vegetarian before. But, you know, just got a packet of Beyond Beef, which I think I like better than Impossible now that I've had both a couple of times. So had some frozen ground Beyond Beef, and it worked great. It was really, really tasty.
So do you form all of that into like a patty or just...
It's more like just sort of like a loose filling. I usually get an ice cream scoop and scoop it into the bun and then squish the bun together so that it stays in there.
Okay.
All I could think about was hot ham water.
So watery, and yet there's a smack of ham to it. Yeah, hot ham water is next on the
That's
menu.
what he wants for his birthday.
Don't know how I'd make that vegetarian. Alrighty, so that's what we've been cooking and getting up to. Let's move on now to digesting all of Nadiya Bakes. So, as we mentioned, these are all 8 episodes of season 1 available to us American viewers on Netflix. So let's start out by just what we thought about the show in general as a whole.
I think Nadiya Bakes is like this easy breezy show, and like if you're a fan of Jabibo, these are all the bakes that like Paul and Mary/Prue would need extra explanations for. And I do like though that she takes traditional recipes and puts her twists on them, and how she has stories to relate to like each dish to make it very personal.
I definitely agree with the easy breezy approach, or not approach, description of the show. I called it in my notes bright, colorful, feel good, pick me up. I feel like this is a show that's just cheerful. You maybe just watch it if you want something quick and fun and breezy. I also agree that it evokes Jabibo in many ways. I think that fans of Jabibo will also be fans of this.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I like that it's a swift 30-minute show. I just enjoy Nadiya in general. Like on her season, she very early of Jabibo, she was very early on one of my favorite bakers. And I know like when Jeremy and I watched it together, we were rooting for her the whole time. So I'm very happy to see that she has gone on to success and, you know, has not just one, but a couple of her own shows. And I think the colorful and the bright is also very apt. When I was like rewatching, one of the things I like is the colorfulness that's in like the costuming. I mean, it's not, you know what I mean? Like the wardrobe that she wears. And even where she writes something on the chalkboard at the beginning of each episode that like fits with the theme. It has this sort of sunniness to it throughout.
I do feel like the aesthetic of the show is very cohesive, which I think works for it and is something I like. Like you said, the wardrobe, the set dressing, it all works together. It's the same bright, neon, sunny color palette. And I think that goes a long way toward just making you feel good when you watch it.
I do think that a show like this would not have been possible like years ago. And I'm happy about the strides, you know, people have made to put like women of color front and center these days. I know that that's big on Netflix's docket, you know, for shows that they have up.
Definitely. And as Amanda was saying, I love Nadiya as a host. If she were to host any more shows, I would absolutely check them out.
I also think this is a very British show.
Yes. Like, I know we've talked about it as each episode has happened of like various things, but when I was rewatching some stuff, I was like, oh, right, clotted cream everything.
Clotted cream everything.
Definitely. At times it felt too British, maybe, but, you know, I just had to remind myself Americans aren't always the center of the universe, even though we like to think we are. We're not always the intended audience. So I'm sure that the average British viewer would probably find this show more approachable than I did. Overall, I did find the recipes pretty approachable, but sometimes there'd just be one ingredient where I'd think, oh, I'll probably never make this because I don't know where I would get that, or whether I'd get it easily, or whether I want to spend, you know, $20 on one ingredient for a recipe that I might just make once.
Yeah, that was one thing as I was going back through the episodes and thinking, when I'm just watching this to watch it and enjoy it, like, it just kind of washes over you. It's fun. But if you're watching specifically to try to find a recipe that you want to do, it is a little bit different. You know, because then it's like, especially for me, I guess, as I'm the novice still, trying to figure out, like, is that something that realistically I could pull off?
I think that that's a very good point. I'm not sure if the show went hard enough in either the instructional and educational direction or in the pure entertainment direction. So I do think that that's a valid criticism, Amanda, because I don't think that it is educational enough that you would watch this show and feel like, oh, I can make this recipe just from watching this show.
Yeah. But I agree with you, and I felt that, like, it even lacked a depth beyond someone just making food that's in a cookbook at times. Like, if you look at the format of the show is very, very simple, and it was kind of just the same thing every episode, which kind of led to not even having, like, a grand ending either. Like, you could start or stop any time.
There's no actual build or anything like that.
Yeah, and especially watching the show in a relatively short time span, the repetitiveness of it stood out to me more than it would have if maybe it were like a weekly show or something like that. And of course, with, I'd say, any show, some sort of predictability in the format is not only expected and necessary. I mean, we do it with our show. We have the same segments that we do every single time. But I think in the case of Nadiya Bakes, what happened for me was that the segments that I thought didn't work as well really stood out more. And it was like, oh, here's the beat where she writes on the chalkboard, and here's the beat where she invites the crew to eat with her, and here's the beat where they go interview these creative kindred spirits. And all these segments that were less successful for me, I felt could have been devoted to the cooking aspect, and that might have made it stronger, because then it would have been more instructional.
Yeah, there's always, as we know, as we're constantly learning, like, little tips and tricks and how to make something better, which she did incorporate a couple of those.
Yeah.
And every time she did one of those, I really appreciated that. Like, I know I brought it up in the episode, but when she was when she was making the pavlova and she talked about putting the vinegar on the inside of the bowl, it was just like, oh, that's such a great idea for when you're whipping the egg whites. And there were some others along the way that was like, oh, that's a great tip. But then, like you said, Justine, that wasn't really the focus all along. But when she was instructional, it was very, very helpful.
Yeah. And I can't even remember, like, towards the end, I feel like those also went away.
We've talked about in all of our previous episodes this season about how the creative kindred spirit segments didn't necessarily work super well for us, maybe weren't the most impactful segments. And I was brainstorming that my personal solution would be to get rid of those segments and have, like, a tips and tricks corner with Nadiya.
100%.
Yeah. If this gets a season 2, I would hope that they would do that. Or if they're going to do the kindred spirits, have Nadiya be with them, as I have mentioned in previous episodes.
Yeah, do we have any other thoughts on the kindred spirits segment as long as we're talking about it?
I think the only one that really worked was the donut one, because it was like a perfect toss where she's like, I'm making donuts. Let's talk to someone else who's making donuts.
It was a good segue. It fit with the theme. I think I mentioned this in our previous episode, but I just liked the location for that one a lot. It was a really cute backdrop on which to have that segment, just the cute little pink donut shop with all the string lights. And it was more engaging to me in that sense as well. But I'm surprised that the French pastry chef was not your favorite, Justin.
He was attractive.
He was an indulgent dessert.
Yeah.
That was the episode title of BT Dubs.
Yes. But still, like, I didn't get anything out of that except for, I'm like, hello, sexy man.
I think what I found the most engaging about those parts were the various accents. Like, when I was watching them more back to back, I was like, oh, different accents from around the British Isles and other areas of Europe. But otherwise, I feel like I always checked out in that part because you're losing Nadiya, which I think she is the glue of this show.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Also, I'm like, I'm not making that. They're making...
Yeah, what was the purpose of those segments? I feel like it was maybe helping out their friends in the culinary community, like giving them exposure. Because like you said, Justine, we're certainly not going to be making those recipes. Maybe the cinnamon bun recipe, because that did look actually kind of easy to make, and the recipe was available online. But otherwise, it's just like, okay, they make beautiful stuff, but that's not really what the show is about. The show is about home cooking and home baking.
And that's, I wonder if it too was like a concept that they production came up with prior to the pandemic, and then they were like married to it in some way, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I should have checked, but I swear in my lizard brain of remembering in Nadiya's time to eat, she actually did go out to the remote segments with the people. I should have checked. I don't remember, but it's a holdover from the previous show for sure, I believe. Oh, God, why am I saying stuff that I'm like, I didn't fact check this?
But it
we'll believe
like
anything you say.
That Kate, the idea was there, and it seemed like a great idea to someone. And then with the pandemic and people not being able to be there, instead of cutting it, they were like, well, we'll just do it anyway. And I just don't feel like it connected.
Yeah. But speaking of Nadiya being the glue of the show, to go back to things I liked briefly, I guess I just want to underscore how much I like Nadiya as a host. She's very engaging and energetic. She definitely has enough personality and character to hold the show on her own. And as we know, she's done many, many shows. And I like her philosophy of cooking and baking. She says a lot throughout the show that it's something that she does with joy and with love. And she feels like that is evident in the end product, and that she believes cooking is something you should share with loved ones, and it's all about an expression of love. And I thought that that was a very nice philosophy, and that her stories about her family wove together well with that philosophy.
Yeah, I really enjoy whenever she does the family tie-in. I mean, I know that seems very typical for me as the Midwesterner, but I do. I don't know. I feel like it makes it, in the way that you were saying, Justine, that it's like, this is a home baking stuff. It makes it feel relatable to more viewers, even though we've talked about how some of the ingredients are hard for us as a US audience. As soon as you bring in that, and then my sisters were all together and we were making this thing together, or, I make a special cake for my husband, and the way that Meg makes a special birthday dinner for her husband, it's just bringing in those things, I feel like makes it relatable, that in some way, whether you're baking yourself or you're eating, you have some memory that is going to involve some sort of family member when it comes to food.
I definitely get the vibe of preschool teacher from her. It's the chalkboard, the bright colors, and when she is speaking, it to me feels like she's speaking to women and or other moms, as a mom
very
herself.
Very mom feel. What do you do when your kids want an easy snack? What do you do when you need to take a dessert outside?
Exactly. Mom vibes all the way. It's a little, I don't be it's a turn off for me. It's a little bit of a, because I'm the angsty, SoCal emo gal.
Well, I will say it's a small thing, but I hated those chalkboard aphorisms. I'm live, laugh, love. Yes.
Yeah. Wine moms.
Oh, yes. Very strong wine mom vibes. I'm just going to assume that production made her do that, though.
I don't know. It does seem like it. I don't know. We don't really know who Nadiya is, because we've just seen her on TV. She does seem like she'd be into that. That'd be her jam. I would kind of like to see her in another setting as well. because I just like her.
I will say that is one thing that I also like about her as a host is that her energy and her enthusiasm feels very authentic to me. Of course, I don't know her as a real person, but it seems like not an act. It seems like she's not dilated up. I get the impression that she really is always this excited about baking. So whether that's true or not, it was effective for me as a viewer.
Yeah, her passion comes through.
Yes, definitely.
I think in both the baking and the eating of the food at the end of each segment. Like, she's so excited to taste stuff.
That's really so important when it comes to food shows, right? You want to see the person excited about what they're making, excited to taste it. I don't know of any better way to advertise the recipe itself, really gets you excited about wanting to eat it.
I think that is one thing that I had as a small criticism is I wish there was a little bit more of her being able to share these with someone else. And again, I know like part of it had to do that it's being made during COVID, but when, she shares with the crew, I know, like you said, Meg, that does get to be a little patterny or whatever. But I think if it had been, I don't know, just someone else who could come in and taste the stuff sometimes, like I feel like that could have been very effective. And I think that could work with the tips and tricks that we want to see more of, as like she's showing somebody something.
I think that could definitely work depending on who she is speaking with. If she were actually at the Creative Kindred Spirits, if she were actually with those chefs talking about food, I think that would be more engaging. I think the reason why the crew segments aren't as engaging to me is that they don't really seem to have the vocabulary to talk about the food in the way that Nadiya does. So whenever she invites the crew over, they're always like, yum, this is so good, And I was like, well, how does it taste? What's the texture like? What's the aroma like? So I don't really get much from their reactions in particular.
Yeah, and their crew, they don't really want to be on camera.
And also, of course, they're going to be like, oh, this is so good, Not that they would ever show criticism of the recipe on the show, but...
Yeah, but she's the talent.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't provide anything to me because I'm like, well, of course, the crew is going to be like, Nadiya, this is the best thing I've ever eaten.
Best thing I put in my mouth.
But I do really like her approach to recipe development as well. She thinks about texture, flavor, looks, aroma. She thinks about every element of cooking and of the final product. And she does like to get experimental and unconventional. One thing she really likes to do is take savory things and make them sweet, or take sweet things and make them savory. So I thought she brought a certain unique creativeness to the recipes themselves that I also appreciated. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to talk about our favorite episodes and recipes, our least favorite episodes and recipes, and whether we would recommend Nadiya Bakes. So come on back in just a moment. And we're back. All right. Did you have a favorite recipe or a favorite episode? Let's talk about the food.
I think my favorite episode is the chocolate one. Because I think there's a lot of different variety, and there's something about it ending on the magic cake that flips. Like, I don't know. I think that was my favorite episode, like, overall. Everything I really enjoyed.
The magic unicorn cake.
I have 3 favorite episodes: Classics with a Twist, Savory Bakes, and Baking with Chocolate.
Oh, why were those your favorites?
Those were standouts to me because mostly I just like the food that she made in them, the flow of them. I do agree that like Baking with Chocolate is a top-notch episode. The other standout to me, of course, Classics with a Twist, the first episode, a lot of good content in that one.
I have a little bit of crossover. I think that my top 3 favorites were also Classics with a Twist, Indulgent Desserts, and Savory Bakes. So a lot of the episodes as we were talking about are kind of samey in the presentation. So definitely the big difference for me was the recipes themselves. And obviously the more excited I am about eating a recipe, the more excited I am about the episode in general. So I thought that Classics with a Twist was a really good first episode, a good introduction to the show. And I thought that all of those recipes in that episode looked absolutely delicious. There were way more hits than misses in that episode. So I was on board from the very beginning.
I think it's interesting that we all picked episodes from the first half of the season.
They put their good stuff first. That's just how you program.
That's true.
I think Savory Bakes was just an interesting episode to see what concepts she came up with.
I appreciate that there was just a savory bake episode in general because, well, my husband doesn't eat sweets. So I'm always on the lookout for recipes that don't involve a lot of sweetness. So I personally appreciated it.
Yeah, when you were talking about the noodles earlier with your soup, I was thinking about the noodle bake in that episode.
I know.
Baking noodles.
I know. When I was rewatching that, I was like, I think I want to try this when we get a stove. But, it's not really something I can try right now.
I knew it.
I totally think you should. It
one.
looks easy. It looks tasty. All right. How about favorite recipes?
I've got a short list of faves, and they're probably, I know you'll definitely have some on your list as well. Strawberry shortcake cupcakes.
Yes.
Lebanese pastry, brownie cheesecake, chocolate caramel flan, onion pretzels, and turmeric ginger diamonds.
Absolutely. I agree with a lot of those. I also really liked how those strawberry clotted cream shortcake cupcakes. That is a long name for a recipe. Those looked amazing. I thought the pavlova looked good. The phyllo cream parcels. I also had the onion pretzels on my list. Those look so good. The brioche wreath and also the pecan hand pies. Again, I don't think I will make them personally, but they just look delightful.
Yeah, I feel like there's some that I'm like, I would eat the crap out of that, but I don't know that I want to make it myself. Those pecan, I would love to eat that. I'll be honest, like because I wasn't on the last episode because of my fall, but no broken bones, guys, no broken bones.
Good.
That Russian honey cake I thought looked good. I would like to eat that, but I don't know that I want to make however many layers that, you know what I mean?
8 layers.
8.
Yeah, love to eat it. Don't have the time or energy to put into that. But yeah, strawberry shortcake cupcakes were definitely a top one for me. And part of it is her presentation of it all is just so I feel like she really stepped out on a top-notch thing right away.
Yeah.
And I also agree with the flan cake. It's a magic cake. It's so cool.
That was a good one.
But apparently even Paris Hilton can make
I
magical
know.
cakes.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
That's a sneak preview for our back burner. Stay tuned. All right. Do we have some least favorite episodes? I know we do.
Yes. Bakes to share, baking on a budget, celebration bakes.
These are the exact 3 I have as well.
Woo!
I would say my least favorite was baking on a budget because that was no budget. That was no budget. As I mentioned before, not a budget. Not a budget.
Not budget friendly. There was no rhubarb. And what the F is fondant?
Runny brownies. It's runny brownies, guys.
Bakes to share. No baking.
I don't even know.
She fried those pecan pies, and there was the no bake Kranikin. And of course, the weird ass chocolate and lime croissant pudding.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is it weird that I want to try that just because it's so fucking weird?
I mean, I literally have all the ingredients, so I feel like I have to make it.
Yeah, you do.
Let's just say I've been considering getting some lime marmalade.
You guys are just so entranced. I love it.
It is.
They're
The rest of it, I'm kind of like, but lime marmalade, guys.
It's so weird. I have to know if it's as weird as it looks and sounds to me.
Yeah, I think just these episodes and what you guys like just covered, I think it's just because they fall into my least favorites. And I have my least favorite list of that chocolate and lime croissant pudding, the rhubarb and custard kisses, the sharing chocolate fondant, anything in Celebration Bakes, and anything with brown sauce.
Absolutely. Yeah, Celebration Bakes hit the bottom of my list for the same reasons you were saying. All of those recipes didn't really have the wow factor I would have expected considering how much time and effort went into them. They looked very complicated. And then the end result, I was like, okay. I wouldn't spend hours and hours to make that.
I'm still so mad about those custard kisses.
No rhubarb.
And no baby
That's
in the king cake.
Like you guys said, where's the baby?
You got that, Amanda. You got that right.
Can't have a king cake without a baby.
You know, that treat tower, the almond biscuit tower with the surprise inside. The surprise should have been a baby.
Oh my God. What if she spent like the whole episode like making one thing?
Start to finish, this is how you make a huge birthday cake or wedding cake or something like that.
Yeah, with like different sort of like things on it and stuff. Like they do with the finale, the Jabibo finale.
Yeah.
The showstopper?
Yeah, those are words.
Now, I had the same thought. A more of a showstopper celebration would have been better.
Yeah, and especially with the showstoppers on Jabibo, they do tend to have a lot of different elements. So, you know, sometimes they'll decorate a cake with a macaron or something. So if she did all these different elements for one big thing to come together, you could still have multiple recipes. And you could still, as a viewer, be like, oh, I think I'm only going to make the macarons or something like that.
Yeah, Nadia, call us. We're good.
We have ideas. All right, I think we've thoroughly digested Nadiya Bakes. So we have to ask now, would you recommend the show to someone? Amanda, would you recommend the show?
Yes, especially if they are a fan of Great British Bake Off. Because I think if you're already a fan of Nadiya and you like that sort of home baking style and that sunny thing that we talked about at the beginning, I think it is fun to watch. So I would recommend it, but I would probably tell someone you may not be able or want to bake any of this, but it's fun to watch.
It's aspirational. I feel the same way. I would definitely recommend it to fans of Jabibo, especially if they watched Nadiya on her season of the Bake Off and liked her. Then, of course, they would like a show hosted by her. And if you're an Anglophile, if you like really British foods or really British stuff, I think that this would be a good show to watch.
I agree with that. I would caveat to say, go for it, watch it, but don't feel pressured to finish it.
So I will say that I don't think I will rewatch this show, but that's not necessarily a ding against it because I very seldom rewatch any cooking show. I don't know if there's a cooking show that I'd feel like, oh, I must watch this over and over. So as much as I enjoyed it, I don't know if it was in the very high tier of TV shows that I plan to watch again. But yeah, check it out. Nadiya Bakes. 3 thumbs up. All right, that's going to do it for Nadiya Bakes. Well, except for our potluck episode in which we will be making Nadiya Bakes recipes. But for the time being, let's head on over to the back burner. On today's back burner, we are talking about Cooking with Paris on Netflix. With an anyone can cook attitude, Paris Hilton adds her own flair to every dish. Fun is just one edible glitter bomb away on this unique cooking show. So I watched the first 2 episodes. What about y'all?
I finished it last night.
Oh my God, Justine.
I watched the first 2 also.
All right, Justine, you felt the need to finish the whole season. Do you want to tell us what you thought about it?
I really kind of love how fun this show is, and Paris is playful, and the cameras are just always rolling. Nothing seems like set up, and I think it's just a fun show with celebs who cannot cook. But like Paris does, she just always comes at it without fear, and rather she just gives the advice, make it your own, and throws a butt ton of glitter on it, which I think should be my life motto. Okay, some things she wears the gloves all the time. Is it because she doesn't want to show her hands? I don't know. I don't really want to deep dive into that. But also, every time she says sliving, I just want to be like, stop making fetch happen.
Yes!
It's not going to happen. I thought the exact same thing.
The first
Stop
time
making
she said
sliving
sliving, I
happen.
was like, wait, is this like a new thing the kids are saying that I've never heard of? Because my sister...
She trademarked it.
And then when it was like, oh, slaying plus living, I was like, oh, no.
They took way too long to explain it, too, because they had said it several times before they were like, oh, by the way, this is Paris's little thing that means slaying plus living. And I was like, oh, okay.
I'm like, you're trying to make a smize, and it's not going to work. Like,
yeah, it is definitely trying to be smize. Yeah, whereas Nadiya Bakes, like you said, Amanda, just washes over you with its nice, calm, cheerful demeanor. I feel like this show gave me anxiety.
oh, really?
Because cooking with those gloves, I was like, they're just going to get dirty. You're cooking in a white dress. I just felt anxiety for her wardrobe, I guess. And also, I feel like that poor girl is going to get cancer in the next 5 years with her cooking utensils. Like, how much glue is on those bedazzled cooking utensils? How many rhinestones has she accidentally eaten? You know, she burns everything. She blended up a salt shaker in her blender.
Oh my God, yeah.
Those rainbow utensils. I'm very afraid for her. I feel like half her diet is Teflon.
And the other half is sugar.
And the other half is sugar.
Well, that was one of the things when she was like, I love marshmallows so much. And she's just straight up eating marshmallows constantly. I'm like, do you just work out 20 hours a day? Like, what do you do? Because
she says she doesn't work out at all. I don't know. When you see like her pantry, it is all just like cereal and candy.
Yeah.
I did think there is someone in this world who is worse in the kitchen than me. And that made me feel pretty good. Like, I know what tongs are, guys. I don't call them the picky uppy things.
But it's so funny because none of them knew what it was. Like, none of the celebrities knew what a whisk was. Like, any of that stuff. It was hilarious.
I loved when they were staring at the KitchenAid mixer and the blender side by side, and they couldn't figure out which one was the blender.
It was so good.
Well, I mean, with the first, like, the first episode was Kim Kardashian, and I'm like, of course, these two women grew up, somebody's doing something for them at all times. Like, they're talking about, like, oh, I loved that time we went to Ibiza, Argentina. Oh, that time. I'm like, oh my God. Like, these are very, very much women of privilege. Yeah, and then when Sweetie is on and she's talking about having to Craigslist rent an apartment, and that's just, like, this completely foreign concept to Paris Hilton. I know you've watched it. I haven't. So I'm a big fan of Nikki Glaser, and I'm very interested to see her episode.
The vegan food.
Because she, like, grew up in the Midwest and stuff, so she's not super privileged, but she does have a bit of a persona. It made me feel good that I'm not the only person in the world who's accidentally, like, dropped something in and blended it or whatever.
Yeah. I will say that the very last episode is a tone shift from all previous episodes, because in the last episode she cooks with her mom and her sister, and they are exactly like when you are with your mom and your sister. Like, they're just all like, you're doing this wrong, and this and that. Like, it's no longer like Paris in the lead. Like, at times she just goes and, like, gets frustrated and just like, like, very tone shift. It was so weird having that be the last episode.
Yeah, overall, I both hated and also kind of liked this show. So I probably won't watch more of it. I did look at the upcoming episodes to see if there are any guests I particularly enjoyed, but I just wasn't familiar with any of them really. So if it were a guest where I was like, oh, I think it would be really funny to see this person, then I probably would watch more. And I'm a little ashamed by how much my, I guess, guilty pleasures for cooking crossover with Paris's, because I was like, I love marshmallows. I love Lucky Charms. I love funfetti cake. Like, not gonna lie, I would maybe make that funfetti cake flan.
When she made that flan, though, I was like, it's the magic cake again. I was so excited.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cake and the flan flip-flopped in the oven.
And it did make me hope that I could achieve that if Paris Hilton can do it.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I was like, she successfully makes a lot of stuff. There is some stuff she fails at, not often though. So I'm like, hey, if Paris can do it,
As she says, any bitch can cook.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, guys, I feel like we're really sliving it here.
Oh God, stop.
All right, let's give some slivin shout outs.
Oh my God.
All right, it's not going to
Loves
happen.
it.
The way you say it, which makes it just so dead on arrival.
All right, so yeah, shout outs on Instagram. Heidi from Vibrant Visionaries Network, Jen from the NostalgiaFiles and Indoorswomen Podcasts, and my mom, Mary, all shared what they were cooking over the weekend. Mary also had this to say about the Celebration Bakes episode. Quote, agreed, that last episode was somewhat disappointing. Bakes were not that inspiring and were not approachable, but I do love Nadiya's enthusiasm and personality, end quote. So yeah, we totally agree with that.
Yeah, Mary just summed up the whole episode.
I was like, she just made everything that we said in one sentence.
She did our job.
Yeah. The perfect TLDR. Also on Instagram, Katlily Cooks was a big admirer of Justine's breakfast scramble and her carrot and orange cupcakes.
Katlily Cooks comments on every Instagram picture we post, so just shout out based off of that. She's
absolutely
wonderful.
Thank you. You are more interactive on Instagram than I am.
I'm like, Amanda, do you even have the app still on your phone?
I do. I know I do, because the other night I had to show a picture of Jeremy's station wagon to someone on Instagram. I was like, oh, I know it exists there somewhere. Hold on.
Proof that you can use Instagram.
Yeah, speaking of evergreen shout outs, I did want to shout out the Edmonton Tourist and Mrs. Casper in general, because they are always constant supporters of us online. They interact all the time. And I wanted to plug their respective websites because they are both avid cookers and bakers, and Mrs. Casper is a professional baker. So if you want to check them out, please go to edmontontourist.com and also go to Mrs. Casper's website, cookingwiththecaspers.com. They both share wonderful recipes. The Edmonton Tourist reviews restaurants, and Mrs. Casper introduces us to her sourdough starter, Breddard Stark. So I really encourage everyone to go check them out. We'll put those websites in the show notes as well. And finally, thanks to Doug on Twitter for giving us a heads up about Carla Lawley Music's guest appearance on Ancient Recipes with Sola, in which Carla and Sola made gnocchi together. So yeah, thanks for reaching out to us online. We'd love to hear what you have to say. We would also like to share a review, but we don't have any at this time. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll read it right here on the episode. Or you can always send us an email, podappetitpodcast@gmail.com. And we have merch if you're so inclined, if you go to podappetit.threadless.com. So stay tuned for our next episode, in which we will be wrapping up Nadiya Bakes and making recipes from Nadiya Bakes in a virtual potluck. Chicken donuts, anyone?
Loves it.
Sliving.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Hi everyone, we're your beer drinking babes. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Nagy, and we're from Rock Candy Podcast.
Every week we bring you a story from the world of music while drinking thematic beers.
Did you ever wonder how much Charles Manson inspired the music you love today?
Did you know that Joy Division and New Order are virtually the same band?
Are you aware of how weird Kesha really is? Like how she had sex with a ghost?
Do you also not understand what Post Malone is? Because we don't.
Well, we got you covered. Behind the Music isn't around anymore, but we're here to pick up the slack.
And be a little drunker.
Yeah, so go ahead and look for Rock Candy Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or wherever you catch your pods. And with that, party on, kids.
Party on.